All right, I think we're live. Are we live? I think so. So welcome everybody. Welcome. Amplified Droid. Awesome. Welcome. All right. So it is time. It is time for the live feedback session. Now, I know the live feedback is usually the last Friday of the month, which would normally be next month, the next Friday. However, next Friday is the day after Thanksgiving here in the United States, and that's a national holiday. I plan on being with my family on that Friday, out of town. So not we're in the city where I live. Obviously, that's what out of town means. And so by using sorry, I'm getting all of these little squiggly lines always annoy me. And so now I'm obsessively kind of correcting them or making them go away. Whatever. I need to focus. So yeah, next Friday, not going to be in town. I figured we could either skip. Let's see here. Are we doing? Okay. So it says I've got good connection. All right. I'm just seeing my screen buffer for some reason on the view or whatever. If something happens, let me know. All right. If something happens to the stream. But yeah, I figured we would either end up skipping the live feedback, but I figured you guys would probably rather not do that. You'd probably prefer to have an actual to just get out of it. I am so sorry. I am all over the place right now. My mind is scattered. I'm looking at like the feedback from YouTube. I'm looking at the notes with all these squiggly things from Grammarly. I'm trying to get Cubase open, and I am also about half a can of Monster Deep. So my ADHD is loving that. So let me focus. Let me recenter myself, whatever that means. Oof, that was loud, sorry. Here we go. All right, starting from scratch. We're doing a live feedback today, all right? We have all these wonderful, wonderful submissions from you people that we're going to be going through today. 4 pages of submissions. We have music that you would like me to listen to that we're all going to listen to together. We're going to get some wonderful feedback. We're going to learn some things. We're going to hear some cool things. And yeah, it'll be a good time, right? So let's check the comments. Awesome, Jack is back. Welcome back, Jack. It's been a while since I've seen you. Vincent, welcome, my friend. Jack, am I planning to bum rush a Target for a flat screen next Friday? No, I have never been a big celebrator of Black Friday. For those of you who don't know, Black Friday is this horrible, horrible holiday in the United States where all of the stores just like mark everything super low price. So I've never really been about that. People get like violent or whatever. People get crazy. Not as much anymore because now Black Friday is no longer like a one-day thing. For example, I've been having a Black Friday sale on my website all month long. Check it out. Got new photos on my website as well. Ebooks, everything is on sale, 20% off for the entire month of November. All right, so check it out. It includes the slides and screen and notes and whatever from my previous videos and all of my wonderful, wonderful ebooks. So check that out. But yeah, no, I will not be celebrating Black Friday in the traditional sense of going to a brick and mortar store and attacking an old lady to try to get the last flat screen TV. Let's see. Amplified Droid. In Brazil, Black Friday is the time of year that everyone doubles the price so they can sell for half of it. Yeah, that's been getting more and more common. But look at this. We are already like 4 minutes into the stream and I haven't listened to any music. So you guys know the drills. If you have any questions, pop them in the comments. I will be happy to address them. Priority is given to Super Chats because this is not a lesson live stream. This is a feedback live stream. We'll be listening to music and offering some insights onto the pieces that have been submitted. However, if you have a very burning music theory question that you just need answered right away, just throw in a super chat and I'll make sure to address it, right? All right, let's do this. First one up, Adhoc. Adhoc actually sent this to me like a month ago. I've had this particular submission for at least a month. Adhoc sent it to me on Instagram saying, hey, basically, can you put this in for the next stream? And I said, sure, let's do it. So the requests. I would be interested in the overall structure and what I should add to the track to make it more interesting. Ooh, all right. Let's give it a listen, shall we?
Why is everyone spiraling over YouTube banning ads?
No. This is wonderful. Stunning. Beautiful. I'm going to pause this so it doesn't actually go into another video or anything. Adhoc, my friend, this is amazing. All right. I have 0 notes regarding the things you asked. All right. So you asked about overall structure and what to add to make it more interesting. I don't think anything needs to be added. And I think your structure works just fine. So unfortunately, along those lines, I don't have anything to offer, which I guess that's fortunate or unfortunate based on what you want. I do have some feedback, though, because this is just an incredible, incredible piece. First, I want to ask, I don't know if Adhoc is actually here. I don't know if they have the same name on YouTube or whatnot, but if you see this, if you watch this, let me know in the comments, all right, whether live or at a later viewing. Are you using, like, what vocal library is that for the vocalist? Is that a sound library? Is that a friend you recorded? Are those samples? Like just like singing samples that you took? That's a really beautiful sound. I really, really like it. Someone here, Vincent. Yeah, Vincent said, man, vocals make everything so awesome. Great track. I agree. That is a very, very, really beautiful sound. Man, you've got me feeling away with this music. A couple things. So first off, around 1 minute and 13 seconds, around this area, we have something what I'm going to call bumps. All right, a bump, whenever I'm reviewing music, I tend to look for 2 things, pretty big things. And these tend to be a big chunk of the rubric I use for the composing competitions I host on this channel as well. There's going to be one coming up, so keep an eye out for the announcement. But they're called bumps and they're called dips. A bump, they're both very, very broad. But a bump is anytime something happens in the music that takes your attention when it shouldn't. Something that you notice that you're not supposed to notice. Again, you can imagine driving on a very smooth road and boom, you hit a bump. That was something that wasn't supposed to be there. And suddenly you're just focused on that bump you hit. So somewhere around here, around 107, 113, you have a couple moments where the music cuts out. I don't know if that was an issue with rendering. I don't know if it was an issue with the sound libraries, but it's something that you would probably want to address if you were to send this, if you wanted to get this professionally placed somewhere. Let's see if we can find one. Right there. Listen to the strings. Right there, see? Now, again, that can be a bunch of things. That could be some issue with the rendering. It could be an issue with the sound library buffering. It could be a lot of different things. Well, you're going to try and figure out what that is, because it happens a couple times. And especially at a very quiet, intimate moment like this where it's supposed to be building lots of energy, those small little things can take a lot of attention away. So that's a bump. The bump is when you notice something you shouldn't notice, or you're not supposed to notice. A dip, if any of you are interested, is basically the opposite. When something feels like it's missing. When it feels like, there was really supposed to be something there, but there isn't. Like sometimes if you're going to have a really big drop and then boom, you want a cymbal crash, but there's no cymbal crash and the music just doesn't hit. You're like, that was a bit of a dip. It could have really used some kind of hit right here, but there wasn't. I didn't really notice any dips there, but that's just me a little bit picky. That has nothing to do with the arrangement. It just happens to do with, like I said, just kind of listening to your renderings. But this is just a really, really good piece. So next, around 2-minute marker and the 3-minute marker, there are some issues with your mix. And again, this is me being picky, all right? This is me being picky and being hypercritical because I think you've got a gift here. I think you've got something really, really good here. I could totally see this being placed in a television show or something. You just got to make sure you get those nice little polished sounds. So around the 2-minute marker, or somewhere around there, your piano and possibly a harp enter the arrangement. And the way they're mixed, they don't sound like they're in the same room as all the other instruments. If we can see here. All right, yeah. So it's not that they sound like they're in a different room. That's what I thought it was, but it's just the balance is a little bit off. Some of your instruments sound much louder than they should be compared to the others. Where again, it creates just a little bit of a lack of balance. It sounds a little harsh. It damages the cohesion and clarity of your music. It happens again around 3 minutes when the drums enter, where again they sound out of balance. Those are the ones that sound out of place. So the drums, great idea, great rhythmic idea. The arrangement is wonderful. But two things you need is, one, they need to be a little bit more wet. You need a little bit more reverb. Remember, reverb being a tool that can be used to help recreate the behavior that sound waves have within a very specific room. So even if you have a lot of different instrument libraries, each recorded in different physical spaces, a proper and intelligent application of reverb can help make it sound like they were all recorded in the same room. Because reverb captures not only kind of like the impact of the size of your room, but also the impact of what's in the room. Reverbs that tend to emulate rooms with lots of soft surfaces will tend to create a very subtle reverb, very warm kind of soft reverb. Whereas rooms with lots of hard surfaces would have a very much more dramatic and noticeable reverb. Should we do it? We've got so many of these. I don't know if I should do another demonstration of reverb. I have done demonstrations of reverb before. If you guys want me to do another one, let me know. I'll do it. Maybe if someone sends a super chat, I'll stop and do one right now. But I don't think I'll go through it in a whole example right now, because we have quite a few pieces to get through. The blog post you want to go to, this one right here. Mastering Digital Spaces for Realistic Music. Essential Mic Positioning, Panning, and Reverb, I think is what it is. It's an AI named title. Reverb Techniques, yep. So the article is not AI. This is written, and it's from one of my ebooks, The Guide to Creating Realistic MIDI Mockups. This one will talk about reverb right here. See, there's a whole section on reverb. It'll explain what reverb is, how it works, why it's important, and how you can use it. So that's number one. That's tip number one. So use reverb to make those drums sound like they're in the same room. Tip number two is getting the balance right. All right, so for the balance, there's a technique I'm going to recommend called the pink noise method. Now, again, I'm going to go to Discord, my Discord channel right here, because this is a technique I shared with someone recently. You can also sign up for the Discord if you want. It's free, tabletop composing. There should be a link in the description of this video. There are some memes. I'm going to put this video right here in the comments. All right, pink. Oops, what happened? I opened something with code. I don't know why. Okay, pink noise method. All right. Let's see here. Copy. No, I want to copy the link. Copy link. There we go. All right, so I just posted the pink noise method, a nice Instagram short by the amazing Aubrey Whitfield, into the live chat, people. So check that out. And again, Adhoc, if you want this specific technique, check it out. You can find it in the Discord channel if you can't find it in the live chat replay, because the live chat replay typically takes about 12 to 24 hours to actually be shown on YouTube for some reason. I have no idea why. But those would be my recommendations. Would be if you can get your balance fixed a little bit, and get your reverb used a little more on those drums, it's going to be incredible. This is already an amazing piece. Right? You should be incredibly proud. I am being nitpicky here. I am being kind of like overly nitpicky because this is such a wonderful piece, and I think you could do something with this. You've got tremendous potential, my friend. So yeah, I would say work on the mix a little bit more. The pink noise method, there are arguments against it. It is, but I'd say it works really, really well for just getting a basic sound started. Especially making sure that each of the instruments sound a bit nice. I would say use it as a starting point. Use the pink noise method to create your baseline foundational balance of your mix. And then from there, you can adjust as necessary. Okay, so one more contact things are not being called completely. Let's do this. Sorry, it's gonna bother me. Let's try this again. Scanning, because I moved some libraries over to a SSD from my hard drive to an SSD. I can do that later. It's too late. I think I started something that can't be stopped. Regardless, I was gonna write this down. No, thank you. But let's see here. I'll pull up a sticky note. All right. So for mixing, I'm going to say mixing priority list. Number one is your arrangement. All right. Get a solid, beautiful, well-crafted arrangement. If you want, check out my textbook. It's currently 20% off. Or check out my free class on arranging. Both can be found on my website, people. After your arrangement, when you have a very high quality arrangement, what next becomes most crucial for a nice mix is balancing your audio, which again, I recommend the pink noise method. Once you have your balance and your arrangement, this is like 90% of the job. After that, things like EQ, reverb, panning, all that kind of cool stuff, then that starts to play a spot. But you really need these two taken care of first. So I'll locate the instrument later. I already know what file it's in, but my computer can't find it. Where are we? What am I doing? I spent way too much time on that. But wonderful job, my friend. I hope that was helpful. I hope all of you learned some stuff. Let's move on, shall we? What other question? Let me check the comments. Tamashi, struggling with a mouse. Hopefully you can get that taken care of. Yeah, a lot of people loving the music. It was a really good piece, not gonna lie. Very strong start. Try to do Suno for the vocals, but man, I could rather continue instrumental. Amplified Android, is this yours? You're saying Amplified Android says, I've tried using Suno just for the vocals, but man, I'd rather continue instruments. Amplified Android, are you Adhoc? Let's see. Judith, welcome, Judith. Happy Friday, Douglas. No, Adhoc is in here. Adhoc is in the chat. Hi, sorry I listened to the stream, but thank you for the feedback. No worries, no worries. Glad you can make it. Glad you can listen to it later. Yes, I did change my pictures on my website. I had a photo shoot, because, I don't know how many of you, got the email from the Indie Film Music Contest, but they were talking about how they have a huge announcement coming up and that they have a new class that they are launching on their website. But you are going to find out soon enough that it was your boy. It was me. I made their new class for them. So they're hosting a new class on their website. I was behind the entire curriculum design. And as part of that, they wanted professional headshots for the website. So I finally had to go get some actual photos that weren't just selfies taken. So that's why my photos are updated on my website. Splice. Wonderful. So Splice, will write you. Okay, so awesome. So Adhoc getting some good questions. For the pink noise, can't listen, I want to stay. We'll take care of it later. Of course I will. All right, wonderful. So Adhoc can't stay. Hopefully, you'll be able to rewatch and learn some cool stuff. So wonderful work with Adhoc. Next, we have Amplified Amplified Droid. Requests. In the last feedback live stream, you pointed out a few things that could improve my mixing. I have a new song where I've tried to apply what I learned. So my question is the same as before, but hopefully this time it is better. Is there anything related to the mixing and mastering of this song that can be improved? Ooh, we're getting a theme today. People want to learn stuff about mixing. Oh, how did I do that? How did I open it? This is very helpful. All right. We got a theme going with the music today and the vibes. All right, all right.
And welcome back to this US Open.
I'm so sorry,
Office
I
Plan.
ruined it. Oh, what did I do? I tried to go full screen. Was that not the full screen button? Apparently not. Where were we? All right, we're starting over, people. Sorry, lo siento mucho. It is a beautiful vibe, though. It reminds me of Japan. I gotta go visit my cousin. Is that a vocoder? It's like a... It's like a vaporwave vibe. awesome piece. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. All right. That sounded like it was a vaporwave piece. Was that intentional? I've got a friend who has a YouTube channel who just does a bunch of vaporwave playlists. I'm not going to share the channel name just because that person also happens to share a bunch of like personal videos on there. So whatever. Don't know why I brought it up, but vaporwave, I love the vibes and genres of vaporwave. So I really enjoy this one. A couple things. The arrangement is very solid. All right. The use of various voices, layers, and ideas, incredibly well done. But that's not what you were asking about. You were asking specifically about the mix. And from the gist of it, it sounds, if I remember, we had the same kind of issues or recommendations that we did for the first one about how to use reverb, how to use the pink noise method to balance your sounds, and possibly a little bit about panning. Did we cover panning? I'm not sure. Awesome. Yeah, so it was synth/retrowave. Awesome. So yes, reverb works really well. All of the instruments sounded like they were in the same room, and I was listening for it. Nothing sounded out of place. The balance was pretty decent within individual layers as well. Now, before I explain more about what I mean by that, make sure you like the video, people. All right, so YouTube, it's going to help a lot with the channel if you like the stream. If you, again, comments work really, really well to help with the algorithm. Like the stream, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. All of that stuff helps tremendously. Now, back to the topic. So I said that the music was balanced very well within individual layers. What I mean by that is your background layers, like your bass line and everything, all of the background material was balanced very well with the other background material. The midground material, so when you had like those little arpeggios and ostinati, those were all balanced very, very well with each other. And all of the foreground ideas, anytime you had a motif or melodic idea that needed to be in the foreground, those were all balanced very well with each other. Now, where the mix started to fall apart a little bit, and again, I'm being nitpicky here, just because I know that you've submitted stuff for mixing in the past, and so I'm trying to offer additional value here. If I had to be nitpicky, I'd say the balance between layers of your music was a little off. Meaning that even though all the background material is balanced very well against other background material, it was stronger than the midground. And even stronger than that was the foreground. So for example, I wrote down minute marker number 1. We're going to hear a melody idea come in. Now I want you to focus on all the different layers. We're going to start at 50 seconds. Listen to each of the layers play, and then when the melody comes in, hopefully you have fresh ears, hopefully it's been a while since you've listened to this, you're going to notice the melody sounds significantly stronger than the other layers. All right. So it was that first. Yep. Here we go, the vocoder. So again, significantly is a strong word to use, but they do sound a bit more forward, a little bit more stronger. You could probably, and again, this is personal choice, personal preference, but I think you could probably pull back a little bit. Now, admittedly, I am a fan of vaporwave, but I haven't studied retro synthwave genres nearly that much. So maybe I'm giving you information that's completely against the genres. But in general, for most instrumental music and most pop music genres, I've talked about the 3 key pillars of arrangements. All right, so the 3 pillars, gotta move my mic a little bit. 3 pillars of strong arrangements are 1, separation, 2, focus, and 3, balance. So these are 3 crucial ideas to get right. And you've got them, all right? You've got all of these very well. Again, this is me being nitpicky, all right? This is an amazing arrangement, amazing mix. You're really, really good. This is, by all intents and purposes, you don't have to go back and redo it. This is just more kind of a little focus for the future. Because, again, I'm trying to offer some kind of value, so I'm being a little nitpicky. I'm getting a little, going a bit more focused. The first idea, separation, is that each individual layer of your music should be able to be identifiable. The audience, the listeners, should be able to say, oh, that's the melody. Oh, that's the bass line. Oh, those are the chords. They don't have to be able to name specifically what each individual layer is. Like, you don't have to have an audience member going, oh, that's the second ostinato, or that's a contrapuntal line. No, you don't need the terminology. But they should be able to tell, oh, these two are separate ideas, and they're being played at the same time. But they are separate. Maybe they don't know these are called chords and that's called melody. But they know that they're different, all right? And they can tell that they're supposed to be different. So once all of your layers have been properly separated, and there are lots of tools you can use for this. You can use rhythm, you can use articulation, you can use pitch, you can use timbre. Those are 4 very strong ones. You can have each layer have a different instrument type or a different performance type. You can have them separated, like one is in a higher pitch, one is a lower pitch. Articulation mean they are being played slightly different. One is a little more sluggish, while one is more crisp and rhythmic. And then they have different rhythmic ideas. Again, I have, if you want to read, I have my textbook is on sale that goes in depth on all of this. I have a free class on arranging that is available on the Academy page of my website. And of course, I have YouTube videos. If you just look up Tabletop Composer, 3 pillars, this video right here. Watch this one, and it'll go much more in depth on each of these. But once you have successfully created separation between each of your layers, the next priority is focus, meaning creating a hierarchy between each of your layers. If you have 4 different layers, melody, chords, bass line, and counter melody, at all times, your audience should be paying attention to the melody that you think is the most important, which 9 times out of 10 is going to be the melody. Now, there are lots of strategies you can use for focus, namely activity, pitch, and we'll say, so activity being changing material, pitch, and rhythm. These are 3. So anything that grows and develops is going to demand a lot more attention than something is repetitive. Anything that is rhythmically active is going to demand a little more attention than something that's not rhythmically active. And anything that is higher in pitch is going to demand just a little bit more attention than anything that is lower pitch. There are other rules as well. But again, check out that video I showed you if you want to learn more. The last one is balance. Now, the principle of balance in terms of strong arrangements states that if you were successful with separation and if you were successful with focus, everything else should be played at relatively comparable power. Now, that sounds counterintuitive. A lot of people who aren't beginners seem to have this belief that the melody needs to be loudest and that the bass line can be a little louder than the others, but everything else needs to be super soft or comparatively soft. And that's just not the case. The whole point of separation, and in particular focus, is that you're getting your audience to pay attention to the elements you want them to pay attention to. You don't need volume to be one of those tools. It can be, but you don't want it to be too dramatic. And if you over-rely on volume as a tool for demanding focus, then it throws off your balance. So like I said, there are a couple moments earlier in the stream I mentioned the idea of bumps and dips. And there are a few moments here where you have the melody come out and it's just a little bit louder than everything else. And it definitely, at least for me, forms a bump where my attention goes to something that it's not supposed to go to. Namely, I'm listening like, oh, wow, okay, that was a lot louder than I was expecting it to be. All right, little thoughts like that. You're trying to get rid of those. So again, this is me being super picky. It's an amazing arrangement, wonderful mix, beautiful piece of music. I'm just trying to offer something helpful. So I hope this is helpful. So again, the main takeaway here is your balance is pretty good. All of your background material is balanced well against all the other background material. All your midground material is balanced really well against all the other midground material. And all of your melody and foreground material is balanced really well against the other foreground material. Where you've messed up, or not messed up, but where you could improve just a little bit is by improving the balance across those layers. By making sure your melody isn't so much louder than the background, if that makes sense. And again, to be able to do that, to pull it off without having an issue of focus, you want to pay attention to those first 2 principles. So in order of most important to least important, good arrangements require separation. That's your primary responsibility, is making sure each individual layer sounds separate. That's what allows you to have an arrangement in the first place. Having multiple layers and having each layer have its own identity and contribute something unique to the music is what allows it to be an arrangement in the first place. Focus then is what offers clarity to your music. It's what allows all of the different activity and layers to be going without making it sound chaotic and muddy. Then after that, balance is what helps it all kind of sound glued together and cohesive, if that makes sense. Let's see what comments we got. I don't know if I want you to play my song now. 23, I don't know if I want you to play my song now. These are all so good. All of the pieces are good. I don't think I've ever had a bad piece submitted. Everybody's pieces are different. That being said, I still want to listen to your piece, 23. But that is something I should say. If you did submit music and at any point you want to make sure you're like, all right, I'm bowing out. I don't want you to play my music for whatever reason, I strongly discourage it. But of course, this is your music, so if you guys do want me to just like not play something, you can let me know in the comments, and as long as I catch it on time, I won't play your music. But no, I think we should listen to everybody's piece. All the music that was submitted is amazing. Tamashi getting second thoughts too. Amplified Droid, yeah, I'm guilty there. Some places I definitely relied on the volume. Awesome feedback, thank you. Wonderful, awesome. I'm glad it was helpful. Again, if you want to learn more about this stuff, if you guys want to master music theory on the best possible way, if I do say so myself, go to my website. The Academy is a free resource full of free classes teaching music theory and composition. So if you just want to know the music theory, you want to know the composition, this is a great resource to start. If you want to learn more about how it's applied, check out my textbook right here, The Musical Storyteller, currently on sale for 20% off. Everything in the store is off, 20% off. For Black Friday sales, all throughout the month and for holiday sales. This textbook, which I actually have a physical copy right here, 400 pages, massive book, 36 chapters, designed to be read one chapter at a time, one chapter per week, so that everything is cumulative. It builds on the previous chapters. It will teach you all of the music theory that you would find in the Academy, plus more. And in addition, the focus through the entire book, as the name states, is specifically on how to apply music theory to tell stories. So how do you portray emotions? How do you portray characters? How do you grow themes? How do you develop ideas so that they follow the arc of a story? Stuff like that. Other books include the textbook version of my class on emotions and music, which is everything about psychology of music and how, not only why music is capable of portraying emotions in the first place, but how you can use the basic principles behind it to portray any emotion you'd like. My guide to making realistic performances with your computer, and harmonic balance, which is super nerdy for the real music nerds out there who want to know exactly how many flutes it takes to balance a trumpet, and how that number gets changed if the trumpet is using a straight mute versus a bucket mute. So lots of cool stuff in here. This is really for like getting nitpicky if you really want to get your balance right for orchestral music. But then I've got all this stuff too. All right, sales pitch over. Let's get back, shall we? So, Amplified Droid, I am so glad that you found that helpful. Let's go on to our friend Shanker Roy. Shanker is, okay, was it? I saw someone on earlier. Shanker, are you on here? I believe it's your birthday, isn't it? I saw someone comment that it was their birthday today on the post. Anyways, if it is, happy birthday. If not, I apologize. Let's see here. Requests. How to balance the lead singer, choir, and orchestra. Like the lead singer will sing and the orchestra will support it, and the choir will come sometime. All right, so balancing in terms of arrangement or balancing in terms of mix. I guess we'll find out when we listen. I don't want the lead singer to be overshadowed by the orchestra or choir. Any tips for it? So this is an orchestration question. Wonderful. I do have suggestions. Another question. How is the orchestration? I only use strings, 2 horns, 3 trumpets, 3 tubas, two tubas, flutes, and piano, and maybe clarinet, not full orchestra. So how do I utilize them without leaving anything behind? Tips for working with real musicians and rehearsal. All right, awesome. So this is all stuff I can help with. Additional information. The melody that starts with cellos and horns is the national song of my country, India. This is a very big orchestral work that will be played by real musicians live. Ooh, very nice. This is not yet complete, and I'll send the complete version on the next feedback session. So how is it? Wonderful. Awesome. Let's do this. So very exciting. Congratulations on getting this performed. Let's give a listen, shall we? nice. Beautiful. Very nice. Very, very nice. All right. Awesome. So let's tackle some of these questions, shall we? All right. How to balance lead singer, choir, and orchestra. The lead singer will sing and the orchestra will support, and then the choir will come in sometime. All right. So we didn't hear any of the choir parts or choral parts added in. So specifically, you are asking how to make sure the lead singer won't be overshadowed by the orchestra or choir. Yes, I have 3 tips for this. First, let's get it out of the way. Microphones are a thing. All right, so your microphone is probably going to be very helpful for arrangements, especially if this is a live performance. The singer is probably going to be mic'd, and the mic with the mixing engineer can take care of most issues. However, that being said, you can make it a lot easier and make it sound a lot more natural. 3 ways you can do this. Obviously, one is use sparse instrumentation when the lead singer is singing. All right, so if you're going to have a vocalist sing, pull back the instrumentation a little bit. All right? So that could be in the amount of instruments. It could be the amount of layers that you are working with. Especially with kind of like a live performance, it can be very helpful to have just limited layers in the instrumentation, where you have maybe a soft string section doubling the melody with the singer, so that the singer has something, kind of a reference and something to help them stay in. Because a skilled singer wouldn't need that as an issue, but sometimes, depending on the skill level, it can be very helpful to have at least a soft doubling of the melody so they have a reference line to work with. So again, whether you pull back the number of instruments being used, or whether you just pull back the number of layers, so you just do like melody, bass line, and maybe some soft chords, you don't need to do anything crazy. That's a very simple strategy. Another one is to make room within the register of the singer's voice. So whatever octave your singer will be singing in, just don't place any other instruments in there. This is a very, very common strategy for featuring soloists, whether it's a solo piano, a solo harp, a solo singer, a solo whatever. A very common and time-tested strategy in orchestration is if you have a soloist, don't make them compete with anyone. Whatever octave, whatever range that singer or that soloist is performing in, don't put any other instruments in that octave. At least not while they're being featured as a soloist. All right? Again, you don't need to be completely rigorous about it, but just make sure that there's no competing notes in that same register, that they're not at the same time like crossing voices with anyone else. All right, so let's see, what else are we doing? So use sparse instrumentation when the lead singer is singing, make room with the register of the singer's voice, and the last one kind of goes with that first tip, but double the melody. All right, if you listen to a lot of orchestral musical theater, things like Andrew Lloyd Webber, you'll notice that a lot of the orchestral arrangements and a lot of operatic arrangements, they're very simple textures. They're just kind of focusing on the melody. Very, very prominent focus on the melody. And then maybe when the singer is holding out a long note, they'll add like a fill or a counter melody. There's not a lot of flourishes because you don't want a lot of competition with the singer. Now, again, these are just suggestions. There are, of course, always examples of people breaking the rules and having it work incredibly, incredibly well. But if you are just starting out and you're looking for some good starter points, these are where I would start. How's the orchestration? I think it sounds wonderful. I don't really have any points without being able to look more in depth at the sheet music. But here we go. I'm only using strings, 2 horns, 3 trumpets, 2 tubas. All right. It's odd that you have 2 tubas. I'm not used to having a group that has 3 trumpets and 2 tubas. Usually it's like... Also, that's very odd that you have more trumpets than horns. I've never seen that. I have never once seen an orchestration where you had more horns than you had trumpets. Is this the actual arrangement you were given? The reason why I bring this up is it takes 2 horns to match a single trumpet at dynamic levels of forte or louder. Horns just aren't as powerful or full-bodied as a trumpet. And so if you've got one trumpet playing forte or fortissimo, one French horn is not going to be enough to balance that. You need at least 2. The same goes for saxophones. You need 2 saxophones playing in unison to balance one trumpet or one trombone if that one trumpet or trombone are playing forte or louder. Now again, if you want to learn a lot more about these complex rules, go to my website, go to the bookshop, and check out this book right here. $20. It's on sale for Black Friday. This little book it's a PDF guide. It has all of the ratios that you could possibly need. But so that's just something that just stuck out to me. It's really weird that you would have less horns than trumpets. I've never seen that before. And typically having 2 tubas when you only have 3 trumpets is also a very weird arrangement. But if that's what you were given, that's what you were given. You work with what you've got. You've got flutes and piano and maybe clarinet. So you're not using the full orchestra. You're missing the oboes. You're missing the trombones. Missing harp, possibly piano. So there's a lot of instruments that are sitting out. The question then is how to utilize them without leaving anything lacking. My recommendation is don't worry about it. All right, I know that's a very dissatisfying response, but this is something I have spoken about a couple times very recently, is that the key to amazing arrangements, in addition to those 3 pillars we talked about, is to stop thinking about orchestration as an instrument-focused study. Like an instrument-focused art form. Orchestration and arranging isn't instrumentation. Instrumentation is about what instruments are being used, their ranges, their registers, their colors, their dynamics, their limitations, things like that. That's not the same thing as orchestration and arranging. Arranging and orchestration, first and foremost, are prioritizing layers, and specifically texture. So texture in music is the number and types of layers of music being used at any given moment. So you're like, all right, in this arrangement, I have melody, counter melody, chords, and bass line. All right, the key to automatically leveling up your arrangements tenfold is to stop thinking of, all right, these are the instruments I have. All right, I'm going to have clarinets do the melody. I'm going to have strings will double the melody as well. Low voices will do the bass line. What am I going to use the xylophone for? All right, no, that's the wrong way to approach it. All right, if you're going off a checklist, trying to think of what instruments need to be used, you're thinking about it wrong. You should, or not wrong, but inefficiently. Instead, you need to start thinking about it as if anything, as a checklist of layers. All right, I've got a melody, chords, bass line, and maybe an ostinato. And you're thinking, all right, what layers am I here? Let's start with the melody. I always start with your foreground. Which instruments do I think could play this melody? All right, focus on that. Pick the instrument or instruments, plural, that you think play the melody. Focus on arranging that melody. Whether you're doing it in octaves, whether you're doubling it with a heterophonic texture, meaning that a melody is doubled by a variation of itself. Focus on arranging that melody. Again, if you want to learn more, check out my textbook or check out my free class on my website about arranging. There's so much information available on my YouTube channel, my website, so much. So check it out. But focus on arranging your melody first, and then you'll have an idea of, okay, this is the general size of my melody. These are the instruments being used to play this. Then, from there, you go to the next layer, your bass line maybe. You're like, all right, so this is the general size of my melody. I need to make sure I pick out instruments that can not only play my bass line, but help balance the size and power of my melody. Then you do that. Then you move on to your chords and your counter melody. And you go off the checklist of the layers in your music, focusing on picking instruments that help accomplish the personality and sound you want. If you are focused solely on getting that checklist of instruments, you end up adding things that you don't need. You end up throwing in parts that aren't supposed to be in there, throwing off the balance of things because you just don't want to be seen as an amateur who's not using the full orchestra. Do you realize that every single time I have ever gone to an orchestral performance of any concert music from the classical repertoire, without fail, every single concert, someone's gotten up and left the stage. very often it's the brass section, unfortunately. As a brass player, that kind of sucks. But a lot of times, they just get up. They're like, all right, we're not needed for this movement. All right, so we're going to take a 10-minute break. We're going to get off the stage. We're going to do whatever we want. Or sometimes they just don't use it and they're just forced to sit there for the entire movement. But great composers understand that an orchestra is like playing with Play-Doh, all right? To borrow a metaphor from Hans Zimmer. It's like Play-Doh. Just because you have all of these colors available doesn't mean you have to mush them all into one pile. You're just going to get a nasty looking mess if you do that. No, it's about knowing what you want to create with the Play-Doh and then selecting the colors based off that. So I wouldn't worry about whether you're using all the instruments or not. Even if they tell you these are all the instruments we have available, you are under no obligation to use all of the instruments available. Your only obligation is to use all of the instruments necessary to portray your music effectively. So that's what I say. I'm not going to offer any tips for like how to add instruments or how to add layers and stuff. If you want, like I said, your best friend is probably studying texture, specifically linear textures, the different ways of arranging melodies. If you want to learn more about that, look up Tabletop Composer, linear textures, and the video that pops up most likely right here, arranging linear textures right here. These are basically different strategies for arranging melodies. All right, so check that out. That can help a little bit. Adding other layers like accentuation. In fact, the entire playlist works really, really well. So check out my ebooks. But again, if you want more about arranging, Orchestration 2, Fundamental Arranging Techniques is very helpful. You don't need to watch Orchestration 1 first. Orchestration 1 is instrumentation. It talks about the limitations and abilities of different instruments commonly found in the orchestra. Orchestration 2 is focused entirely on arranging techniques. So this will probably be very helpful for you, hopefully. 100% free class. If you do take it, I ask that you consider making a donation. The donations help fund the creation of future classes. But you're under no obligation. It's all 100% free. And again, if you want something more on applying music theory to tell stories, check out my textbook. But other than that, like I said, I would not worry about it. So then the last question, okay, but don't worry about the instrumentation, focus on layers at a time. Tips for working with real musicians and rehearsal. Depends on the setting, but I'd say something I like to do is just start off by letting them know that you're all on equal standing, all right? Don't take an arrogant standpoint. You are the composer, all right, but they are the musicians. They are there, and if they have ideas, listen to them. So something that I always like to do is start off, when you introduce yourself, it's like, hey, welcome. It's like, all right, real quick, does anyone have any questions? Does anyone noticed anything they think might be a mistake? Because mistakes happen. Sometimes you wrote a part for the French horns that's not going to work the way you think it's going to. Maybe you wrote something for the violins and they're like, no, we're not going to do that. Or that wouldn't sound the way you think it's going to work. But always listen. It's like, hey, anyone have any questions before we start? Any ideas, any thoughts, anything you think looks like a mistake or anything you think isn't going to work the way it's written? And the second thing I would recommend is be colloquial with your writing terms. Don't try to be super academic. Don't try to use the proper Italian terminology for everything. I personally like to take a very story-based lens. So when I'm working with like instrumentalists and band members, and they're like, it's like, all right, you've got the melody here. I'll tell them a little bit like, here's what's happening in the story. All right, here's what's happening in the character. Here's what I thought I wanted this melody to convey in the story, because lots of times musicians can help. They are masters of their instruments, and they can help portray that story better than I could try to convey it with Italian terminology in sheet music. All right, but excellent. So wonderful work as usual, Shanker. Again, happy birthday if today's your birthday. I think you were the one who was posted on my on the post saying it was your birthday. Let's see here. Comments. Thank you, everybody. Douglas liked it. John Mack, welcome, John. Adhoc, thank you very much. Now I can hear the feedback. Yeah, I know the pink noise. Awesome, wonderful. Leslie, dear teacher, I have a question. I watched how artificial intelligence has developed in the field of music and lost the desire to compose. What should I do? So losing the desire to compose, that's something I can't really help with. That's something that if you really want to, I'd say speak with a therapist. I believe the term for losing pleasure in something that used to bring you joy is called anhedonia. Anhedonia, I believe is the term. I might be pronouncing it wrong. back from my therapy days. It is a real issue. I would say you have nothing to worry about with artificial intelligence. And not for the reason you think. I've been very blessed and fortunate to work with multiple directors, multiple playwrights, multiple projects. There is a very human element at the core of music and storytelling. Artists don't want to work with computers, in my experience. Yeah, artificial intelligence is probably going to do away with some things. For just the same way that like notation software did away with the need of handwritten copyists. There's always going to be progressions, but the composer themselves will never be replaced because there is a desire for a human connection at the center of storytelling that can't be replaced by artificial intelligence. There's a desire to share and collaborate that can't be replaced with artificial intelligence. So yeah, AI is going to have its place in this industry. It always does. The same way that the DAW, the invention of the DAW and sound libraries, did away with the need for having to study, do score reductions for two pianos. There's always going to be adaptations, but composers aren't going anywhere. There is a human element to art that will never be replaced because art at its very core is the sharing of an emotional and human experience. All art forms, every single one of them, trace their roots back to storytelling. At some point, at the very beginning of any new art form, was a human being who had an idea or an experience that they wanted to share. That is the same for dance. It happened for painting, for music, for sculptures, what have you. Every single art form comes back to storytelling. That's just the way it is. All right? And storytelling is inherently a human expression. As long as human beings want to share their experiences, want to share their emotions, there's going to be a need for human artists. All right, so don't worry about it. Don't get disheartened. I'm not going to say AI is a fad because it's not. It's here to stay, but it's not going to completely ruin things the way a lot of people seem to think. So I wouldn't worry about it. You're fine. Even if the worst comes to pass, there's nothing worrying can do about it. I wouldn't lose your inspiration to compose though. Keep writing. All right, music is again an expression of self. It's an expression of the stories you want to tell. The same way that emotions are always going to be a way. Emotions are they're a tool for understanding the world around us. That's what emotions do. We are exposed to a new stimulus. We're exposed to something new, and our emotional response to that something new helps us make sense of it. Sometimes in a good way, sometimes in a maladaptive way. Human beings can be messed up, all right? But yeah, AI isn't going to replace anything. They might replace some little smaller jobs, or like I imagine the art of the MIDI mockup is probably going to be one that goes out the window. When you no longer need, when AI can go through and can make your sound libraries perform the way you want them to sound without you spending hours of going under the hood and adjusting MIDI continuous controllers, that's probably some tedious work that's going to get replaced. And that's kind of exciting. Anytime something tedious gets removed from the equation and you get to focus more on the art and the creativity elements of it, that's awesome, in my opinion. But no, yeah, the actual art form of composing, it's not going anywhere. So hopefully that helps, Leslie. I'm sorry that it's causing you stress and caused you to lose your desire to compose. I hope you can find your desire again. Because composing is a wonderful thing, and we all need more music in the world. All right, so that being said, we have a lot more pieces to go through, all right? Daniel Flam. I believe Daniel Flam. Is that Flim Flammery? I have not seen Flim Flammery in the comments yet. Here we go. Request, I would like some help on orchestration. How can I add in some more instruments? Specifically, the brass section. Oof. Daniel. All right, so we just talked about this. So I probably won't go too in-depth, but let's give it a listen, all right? So additional information, this is not an original piece. It is an arrangement of Scarborough Fair, which is an English folk song. I started this to practice orchestration, and I had a lot of fun with it. I look forward to hearing any advice you have. All right, wonderful. Let's give it a listen, shall we? Ooh. Beautiful. All right, wonderful, wonderful, nice little arrangement. I don't think it needs brass, especially for a piece this short. You don't need to use the entire orchestra. So I'm not going to go too in-depth on here. I think it's a beautiful arrangement. Nice string quartet with the solo flute. That's an awesome combination. Again, it's going to come back to a lot of those things that we've talked about already. All right, first, starting with a layer approached a layer-focused approach to arranging. How many instruments, how many layers do you have in your arrangement, and how many instruments do you need? You have 5 layers in your arrangement. You have the melody. You have, or let's zoom in here. So you have the melody. It looks like the melody is doubled, so that's 1 layer. You have your arpeggio, that's a 2nd layer. You have, looks like chords, that's 3 layers. So you have 3 layers. You don't even have basses, so there's not even a bass line, it doesn't look like. Except for maybe you have, maybe that bottom line in the violoncello is bass line and not chords. I don't think you need brass. Again, if you needed to, it comes down to, I'm going to write this down, people. All right. An effective and efficient approach to arranging music. All right. Step number 1, identify each of the layers in your arrangement that you need to orchestrate. Step number 2, identify which layer is the most important. Foreground. All right. Then, let's say, then arrange the foreground. All right. For this, identify the personality/mood you want to convey. Identify all the various instruments that can deliver that mood. Then, based on the range and dynamics of your layer, select an instrument or instruments that can effectively perform this part in a register that would convey the desired mood. All right, so this is very important. All right, so basically identify, say you want a nice, bright, happy mood. All right, you identify a whole list of instruments that can convey a nice, happy mood. Then you look at the range of dynamics. All right, so the happy mood, it's right about middle C. You're like, all right, well, yeah, the piccolo is capable of delivering a happy mood, but not really around low C. The piccolo can't even play that low. So, boom, out of the picture. Maybe flute. Flute could do it, but flute sounds a bit more pensive down there, in my opinion. It could still definitely sound happy. So, depending on your taste, you go, boom, get it out of there. Then you think, all right, that lowest octave, viola could do that. Viola could definitely do that, so keep viola. And then you continue that process until you've found all the instruments that can physically play that part while delivering the personality you want. And then you select the best instrument. Now, if you don't feel confident with understanding the different personalities of music, my best piece of advice for you is to just simply start listening to music and taking mental notes. All right, so think like, all right, this piece of music makes me feel very excited, happy, and adventurous. You think, all right, what's playing the melody? Oh, French horns are playing the melody. That's really cool. All right. What's playing the counter melody? Oh, we actually got the violins. The violins are playing an octave higher on the counter melody. That's kind of weird. That's not usually something that happens. Whatever. Just start listening intently to music. You don't need to write it down. Write it down if you want. But the more you listen with intent, trying to understand what instruments are playing what part and how it's impacting the mood, the more you're going to start to internalize that information. It just takes time. All right. Now, once you have arranged your foreground with this method, finally, arrange your remaining layers using the same exact process with one additional step. Select a number of instruments that allow you to balance with the foreground. All right, you don't want a bass line that's stunningly stronger than the foreground. You don't want your foreground being played by a flute and then have the trombones playing your chords. That's just not going to work well for you. You could technically pull it off if you used a like a straight mute on the trombones and you kind of used a violin section to enhance the flute. It's possible. You can do it. Again, if you want to learn some different strategies, check out this ebook. It's on sale. It'll teach you all those strategies for how to make sure that your instruments are balanced. But for the most part, this approach is going to help level up your ability to arrange music significantly, all right? Rather than trying to think, how do I add additional instruments? You want to know, how do I select the right instruments to support my texture? Again, texture being a term used to refer to the number and types of different layers in your music at any given point in time. So hopefully that's helpful. I don't know if Flim Flammery is here, but wonderful, wonderful arrangement, Daniel. Sounds awesome. Let's see here. Say Muse score. I say 23. Did I say Museo? I was supposed to say Muse score in my description. Oops. 23 here. No worries. You said Muse. You said Muse, and so I assumed it was Museo. All right. Awesome. So people are looking at it. All right. Awesome. So we're moving forward. Wonderful job, Daniel. On to 23, who is in the comments. Requests. I'm curious what you might have done yourself to make this piece more likely to have won the competition. Is there anything in this piece that particularly stands out that could have been done better? What are your thoughts on MI? I'm not sure what MI is. Additional information. This piece was written for the most recent Ryan Leach competition. It was limited to 90 seconds in length for the sake of the competition. Who does that? Keep in mind that part of the requirement of the competition was also for the recording to come straight out of Muse score. So not Museo, Muse score. So traditional mixing was not an option, aside from some volume and paneling options, which I tried to pan and level to match if they were looking at the orchestra on stage. So if you wanted to come out in the mix at all, you may have to go straight for how it's arranged. All right, no worries. 90 seconds. First off, who does that? Every single film director to have ever lived, my friend. Film scoring deals very much with tight, oddly specific timings. All right, so that's something why I refuse to budge on the time requirements for my competitions, and why I imagine Ryan Leach does as well. Not only because it keeps things more manageable for us, but because that's part of the job. If a director says, I need 1 minute and 32 seconds of music for this scene, and you go, the music I wrote is 1 minute and 40 seconds. Is there any way you could add 8 seconds to your scene? You're getting fired. All right, you're not keeping your job. They're not going to work with someone who can't meet the bare minimums. All right, it's a harsh reality, but it's an important one to learn. All right, not everyone can be like a Bernard Herrmann, who was a long-time collaborator of Alfred Hitchcock, and told him, no, my music was written this length. You need to lengthen your scene. All right, Bernard Herrmann and Alfred Hitchcock were both infamous curmudgeons. They were both very difficult people to get along with. At least professionally and artistically. So yeah, but they were also like top of their game, so they were allowed to be that way. Let's listen to your music, shall we? Let's see what I would recommend for doing differently. That beautiful Muse score sound. This is really cool because it's an opportunity to look past the sound libraries. It's an opportunity to look past the mix and actually focus, because you're limited to using a free software to perform the music. It forces me to look at the quality of the arrangement itself. Now, I did see that you mentioned that you were making a joke about my own competition, because yeah, I also do the 90-second kind of thing too. But yeah, I get it. It's frustrating. It's kind of funny. I hope you find it. There are reasons for it though. So right off the bat, something I would comment on is clarity of design. In 90 seconds is not a lot of time to get your music going. But you have so many ideas going on that there are a few moments in here where it sounds very muddy and chaotic. Now, again, adhering to those 3 pillars I mentioned earlier of separation, focus, and balance, that's going to clear up most of this. So I'm not going to focus too much on that much. But the biggest one being focus. Focus, again, is the element most responsible for clarity in your arrangement. Now, one of the biggest components of the principle of focus is that elements that develop and change demand a lot of attention. This is just kind of the way the human brain works. Anytime something is repetitive, we stop paying attention to it, or our brain stops wasting resources on trying to follow it. So and it works really well for music. This works really well from an evolutionary standpoint. It's how we survived for so long. Is anything that was out of the ordinary, anything that stuck out as new or different, got more attention. So you're more likely to notice a predator, for example, like a tiger or something. I don't know. But it works really, really well for music, because anytime an idea is established and allowed to repeat, you're like, oh, all right, well, this ostinato has repeated the same rhythm 4 measures in a row. Automatically, it's going to stop demanding attention. Now, one of the issues with the clarity in your arrangement here is you introduce a lot of moving ideas. You add a lot of embellished, interesting ideas that play at the same time without having enough time for any of them to become repetitive or be established as repetitive. One of the very important tools is something called incremental complexity. Which is something Hans Zimmer uses a lot in his soundtracks, where you have a very complex arrangement, but you introduce each individual layer one at a time, so that the audience has a chance to get used to each idea before you add the next one, and it helps everything sound so much clearer. All right? Now, so that's what I would say is really right now, your biggest issue with this arrangement is the clarity in the arrangement. So really focus on that principle of focus. In particular, that idea of not having too many different lines playing at the same time that develop. There is a recommendation from, I'm forgetting the name of the author, but there is a classical book on orchestration where the author states that your arrangement should never have more than 1 melodic line. And the melodic line being defined as a layer of your music that develops. It grows, it changes, it does new things, it moves in different directions. In other words, a line that isn't super repetitive. Now, the author then goes on to add the caveat that yes, you can have multiple lines that aren't quote-unquote repetitive playing at the same time, but every additional line should be simpler than the previous one, getting simpler and simpler and simpler so that there is a very clear hierarchy of which line is the most interesting. So that's the main issue. You have a lot of really interesting, a lot of really creative, a lot of really cool ideas, but with such a short piece, which is part of the competition, you try introducing too much too quickly, and it creates a more chaotic sound than you would probably like. Now, one of the dangers is because when you were writing this, you probably listened to it over and over and over and over and over again. So they did get repetitive in your ears. And so you were able to create that hierarchy and hear the hierarchy of ideas that you wanted. That's one of the dangers of composing in general, is it's very easy for us to become accustomed to what we're writing and lose sight of how a fresh pair of ears will actually hear it. So a lot of really, really cool ideas here. I think the biggest issue is the clarity of design. If you get that taken care of, again, check out that video, Tabletop Composer, 3 pillars, Google it. Very first video to pop up, this one right here. It's got a picture of John Williams and Mozart carrying a pillar. Haha, kind of stupid. But check it out. It's going to help a lot. Wonderful arrangement, though. Good work. All right, I enjoyed it. 23, let's see here. So am I as mix? Douglas, gotta go. Thanks for the live stream and all the great info. Having a happy Thanksgiving. Looking forward to the next one. Thank you for stopping by, Douglas. Thank you very much. And I know you're probably gone by now, but happy Thanksgiving to you as well. Brett Graves Music. I think Ryan Leach let participants use the free MuseScore sounds in the competition, as in not the default sounds. Interesting. All right. Yeah, I don't know much about the Ryan Leach competition. I really like the idea of requiring MuseScore. Of course, it causes a disadvantage to people who aren't familiar with how to read and write with music notation. But as like someone who's had to judge competitions, it helps get to the having everybody use the same exact software and same exact sound libraries helps give a little bit of it helps cut to the quick. It helps me force to focus on the quality of ideas rather than the quality of production. All right, Aditya, how many more do we got? Wow, we got a lot more. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. Aditya requests, can you try to rate it according to your rubric? Oh, so I am assuming this is a submission for my competition that I did last time, or at least found the same rubric. Does the small section in the middle change the energy and offer contrast? How did you like it in the end? Please rate it as you see fit, as I want to know how I can improve and be really nitpicky as far how do I have to get that pro sound. Excellent. Let's listen to it, shall we? I don't know if I'll use my exact rubric because that would require me to go deep into Google Drives and try to drive and find it. And we are going quite over at this point, but let's give it a listen, shall we? This is really well done, Aditya. I'm kind of getting Studio Ghibli vibes with these last couple of chords. Excellent. All right, so you've got several different moods.
Unfortunately, we don't get an owner.
All right, so you've got multiple different moods going through here, which I think works really, really well. It's a very common strategy necessary for film scoring, is to be able to mark different hit points, different events happening on screen with a dramatic shift in mood and personality in your music. Okay. Let's see. You actually missed a part of my song on stream. Can you repeat it? Yeah, I noticed OBS cut off for some reason. I apologize. Yeah, we can listen to it again. It's a short piece. We just gotta wait for the ads to finish. All right, let's see here. 1 second, guys. All right, sorry, my phone is blowing up right now. I am getting some people asking. Apparently, my roommate is not responding to some stuff, so I am going to be right back. All right, I apologize. I will be right back. We are not done with the stream yet. I'll be right back. Give me like 1 minute to go figure out what's going on with my roommate and whatnot. And we'll see what happens, right? I'll be right back. Thank you for your patience. Let's see here. I'm going to turn my video off. I'm going to mute this. I'll be right back. Thank you for your patience. All right, I am back. Thank you very much, everybody. I apologize. So, here's what happened. There's like a big holiday celebration downtown going on today, and my roommate's family is coming up for like the parade and see the tree get lit and stuff. And so my roommate is apparently currently in the shower, so he's not answering his phone. And his whole family got here, and they were like blowing up my phone, trying to figure out what's going on. And so I just had to go downstairs, let everybody in, tell them to make themselves at home, kind of stuff like that. And yes, where were we? All right, so thank you for your patience. Let's get back to the work. So we're going to listen to Aditya's music again, because apparently OBS quit or dropped for some reason. And obviously, because I had to go do that whole thing, all my ideas went out of my head. So let's listen to it, shall we? Aditya, beautiful. Man, if I had a prize to offer for like most improved, this would definitely have your name on it, dude. So Aditya's, for those of you who don't know, Tamashi in the comments has been submitting pieces to these live streams since I think as long as I've been doing them. I think you are one of the most consistent people in terms of submitting. And over the years, seeing your growth as a composer has been astounding, my friend. You're making incredible leaps. Bravo, well done. All right, so you wanted me to rate this based off how it would do in my rubric. So with my rubric, I don't have it right in front of me because that would require me to go, like I said, dive deeply into Google Drive and try to find it. But a couple of things that you get graded on are the clarity and the flow. So clarity sounds good. We just went in depth on clarity with, 23's piece, I think it was. So I already covered what applies for clarity and what creates clarity. I'm going to talk about a bit of that flow. So flow has to deal with kind of the seamless, again, as the name says, the flow of your music. In particular, the presence of bumps and dips, those two elements I discussed earlier in the stream. Bumps being elements of your music that grab your attention when they shouldn't, and dips being things where you feel like there's supposed to be something there, but there's not. Now, listening to this only once, well, technically twice, but it felt like once because the whole debacle kind of reset my brain. There's one moment that I noticed where I felt like there was a bit of a dip right here at this transition, where it feels like you're building so much energy, and then boom, the payoff just isn't quite there. Let's listen to this. Great idea, great beautiful texture, but it doesn't feel like it's bright enough. If this is the moment that help arrives and you have this huge chaos, massive size with the chaos, and then boom, the payoff isn't quite there. The size isn't equal. Now maybe it not supposed to be equal. Maybe it makes perfect sense for the story you've had in your mind. But for me, that's just kind of a dip that I would have noticed according to the rubric, where I felt like there was supposed to be this huge payoff, but there just wasn't quite enough. I love the idea of the solo vocalist, but maybe double the voice an octave higher with strings, or across multiple octaves with the entire string section. Then really you bring that brass section in to help powerfully balance the other layers of the music. Create a cymbal crash, something to help create this sense of arrival, right? But that's the only really thing that I would have noticed without my rubric in front of me. It's an amazing arrangement, my friend. You should be very proud. I would say maybe just focus on balancing your size and your payoffs here and there. So wonderful. Excellent work. All right, since we've already covered like flow and clarity, I won't dive too deeply. You did an amazing job, Aditya. I'm so sorry for not giving more. We have so many to get through, though, and we have already gone an hour and a half in. So, Mark, moving on. Mark, request. I wrote this piece for a composing competition. Same one. Ryan Leach. The rules were to write a piece inspired by the artwork Mountain by... I am so sorry. I don't know how to pronounce that. We would only use Muse score. So everybody kept saying Muse, so I imagine I thought it was Museo, but it's Muse score sounds. This was my first time writing for a full orchestra, and I was wondering if this would be a realistic orchestration. The contest had orchestra requirements below. Awesome. So 2 flutes, 2 clarinets, 2 oboes, 2 bassoons, 4 horns, 3 trumpets, 3 trombones, 1 tuba, timpani, 2 percussionists, a harp, 6 violins, 6 second violins, 6 violas, 6 celli, and 3 basses. Additional notes. I used the Muse score sounds single instrument patches for each of the wind instruments, smart, and percussion. For the strings, I used a section patch for violin 1, violin 2, viola, cello, and contrabass, smart, and only added dynamic writings to the parts for balance and only EQ'd the final mix. All right, awesome. So, unfortunately, I'm just going to be honest. There's not much I can offer on realistic orchestral arrangements unless I'm able to look in depth at the sheet music, which unfortunately one pass isn't going to be enough. So let's listen to it. I'll see if there's anything specific I can offer, but let's give it a listen. Nice switch up. Incredible. All right, I have some stuff I'd like to say, but first I got a comment. Tamashi says, the middle section, I wanted to be more intimate and quiet like the Waltz di Fantastica. Guess I failed there. I see. So to get that effect, I would have removed the brass. If you really wanted to create that contrast, just commit to it, all right? I think that's definitely possible. There are going to be some ways to transition and create a much softer quality. If you want to create a strong contrast, use contrast in the instrumentation too. That'll help quite a bit. So if you have a huge, really powerful brassy section where the brass are very dominant, like you had, and then you want to create a very contrasting soft idea, offer contrast. The vocals are great, but get rid of the brass. Add something new. That's always something that helps a lot. But again, very great arrangement, my friend. Here, Mark, wonderful arrangement. In fact, I want to point out some things you did really, really well. All right, so Mark did an excellent job of using that layer first approach to arrangement that I've been talking about pretty much all stream. where there was no pressure of using all instruments at any given moment, but rather moving around the melody and foreground material with the different voices, using only those which were most necessary to create the flow. Now, again, another thing you did really well was manipulate the size of your music. So, emotion and personality in music comes down to three basic elements. All right, size, movement, and valence. Size referring to, of course, the general size of your arrangement. How loud and big does it feel? The larger it is, the more intense it will sound. The smaller it is, the more intimate. Then for movement, the more energy and movement your music has, the more invigorating the emotion versus draining the emotion is. And then valence being how bright or dark it is. So by using size and changing size, you can always introduce shifts and growth in that personality, in that mood, in that emotion. And that's something you do very, very well with this arrangement. You're moving around, you swap to different instruments, you swap to different instrumentation sizes, swap to different textures, different emphasis of different styles, and it works really, really well. You tell a great story with this music. Now, unfortunately, I don't have anything specific to offer like constructive-wise, other than a bit of praise, because I don't know if you guys are noticing, but I'm getting a lot less specific with my feedback on each of these pieces as it goes, and I'm sorry, I'm getting exhausted. So I am so sorry. If you don't think I'm giving your music the due diligence, please be patient. I apologize. I am getting tired, is all as it is. I've been on this stream for an hour and a half now. But I'm enjoying myself. I really am. So thank you, Mark. Wonderful submission. All of the submissions have been really good. But yeah, without being able to go, I would say the music sounds very idiomatic. So answering your question, it certainly sounds like a great orchestral piece. In particular, this is the kind of quality you have when you think of things by a layer first mentality and not instrument first mentality. When you think about which instruments service the music best rather than what can I make each instrument do. So yeah, I think it sounds very idiomatic. Now, I didn't have time to look very in depth at each individual layer to see if it was written idiomatically, meaning is it written for the proper ranges in each instrument? Are you using the right number of instruments to balance the music the way it should be balanced, etc.? But it sounds very nice. It sounds very idiomatic of the orchestra, written very musically. All right, Vincent Kubler, a former winner of one of the competitions, I believe. Let's see here. Let's give a quick listen to Vincent. Vincent says, I would be glad if you talked about orchestration and balancing and maybe ideas to give some additional variation. It was supposed to be a song that can just work in the background or like a video game or something, but I think maybe a pad or some sound effects could help, maybe. Also, please don't diss the melodica too much. I played and recorded that myself, so it might be out of time at places. Awesome. So these are all things we have talked about in depth already. So I'm not going to go too in depth on any of these anymore. But let's listen to the music and see if I have any thoughts, shall we? All right. Ooh, Swan Strong. was beautiful. Incredible arrangement. I think it works really, really well. So let's see what feedback you were. So I already gave feedback on a lot of the stuff. So we're not going to talk about balancing or an approach to orchestration, or necessarily. We can talk a little bit about variation. Yeah, we'll talk about variation. That's something we haven't talked about. So, tips for variation. All variation should serve a purpose. Don't add it just because. All right? So variation meaning changes to your instrumentation, changes to your melody, changes to your harmony, changes to your bass line. You should never add variation just because you feel like you're supposed to add variation. You should always be deliberate. Now, that's easy to say, much harder to apply. So I'm going to offer you, again, a very simple model. 3 simple types of variation. Change in size, change in energy, and change in valence. Again, these 3 elements, size, energy, and valence, being the 3 keys to emotion in music. All right, so, again, if you want to add variation, if you want to increase the intensity of your emotion, you can make a variation that gives you bigger size, whether that's a variation in the texture, a variation in the instrumentation, what have you. If you want to create something that sounds more intimate, a little more peaceful, then you can try to reduce the size. Create some kind of variation that will reduce it. Same with energy. If you want to create something that becomes a little more energizing or a little more depleting, or if you want to think about this as the physical expression of emotion, how physically expressive do you want this emotion, this music to sound? Or how kind of reserved and peaceful, laid back do you want it to feel? And then valence, again, being how bright or dark you want it to sound. So as you play your music and as you write your music, you want to think about the emotional impact you want to have with each variation. Like, all right, at this point in the story, I want it to sound a little more peaceful. All right, so a little more peaceful, some ideas. Find a variation that reduces the size, reduces the energy, and maybe just keep it bright. Keep it nice and easy breezy with your harmony, nice major harmony and stuff. Maybe you think, all right, I'm going to add a variation, but now I want, boom, anxiety. All right, so anxiety, from peaceful to anxiety, boom, energy goes up. All right, add a lot more movement. Maybe add a bit more size. It's a bit more serious. And definitely get a little darker. All right, so you see how this is just one approach. But anytime you add variation, you want to first start by thinking. So process. Start by thinking what kind of impact you want to have with your variety or variation. What is your why? All right. Next, consider which of the parameters of your music can help convey this mood. Whether that is tempo, texture, timbre, rhythm, register. You can say pitch, pitch, which I will say in parentheses is melody. Harmony, dynamics, articulation. Is that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? So that's 9. That's the 9 parameters. Think about which one of these can help convey that kind of mood, and then use that idea to plan out your variation. All right? So that's what I would say. I would say be deliberate with the kind of impact you want to have with your variation, and then build your strategies based off of the desired effect you want. Don't try to think about just, oh, I need variation. How am I going to change this? You can if you'd like, but to make an impactful variation, you want to think about your why and then make decisions based off that. All right. Again, moving along. I apologize because I do need to get done by 5. I'm supposed to be downtown around 5. So we have 2 more. So Vincent, all right, awesome. Thank you very much. Nicolo, how do you strike the right balance between something that should stay in the background to create atmosphere while still having it be coherent? A standalone piece maintaining interest and good pacing. I think Hollow Knight's soundtrack does this perfectly. Additionally, from the point I go to, where would you advise me to go for the pacing point of view? Grow, die, or out? Die out, or loop? So additional notes, in the piece, I'm trying to establish a mysterious atmosphere like the soundtrack of an area of the map that a player gets to explore in a hypothetical video game, but I don't really know where to take the piece from here. Awesome. Let's listen to it, shall we? Ooh, this is really nice. My pleasure, Vincent. This is beautiful. I'm loving the sound effects. Beautiful. All right. So, Nicolo, you already did everything I was going to recommend. So, if you want to create a background music that can still be a standalone piece of music, so something that's comprehensive and is still good to listen to by itself, but that can still be kind of ambient and background, I recommend 3 things. 1, low energy, so not a whole bunch of rhythmic stuff, low size, stuff like that, small size. Intimate instrumentation, so again, very small instrumentation, not a huge, massive orchestra, not a massive choir, but kind of smaller, more intimate chamber groups. And 3, simple textures. So you're not doing a whole bunch of layers. You don't have like 6 different musical layers going on. You've got a melody, maybe some form of counter melody, and a bass line, and maybe chords. Something super simple. As long as you stick to those 3, then you write the piece of music as usual. Building your melody, building your variation, moving around instrumentation, stuff like that, and keeping that low energy, keeping that low profile is going to help work really well. You already did all of those. You have succeeded. You did very, very well, my friend. So your second piece about where would I advise you to go from the end, pacing point of view. Pacing, I'd say unless you want to add more, I would have like a fade out near the end to make it a little less aggressive. Looping, it depends on really anything else. It depends on the need. If this is for a video game, you want it to be loopable. If this is for a film score, you want it to fit the scene. But as a standalone piece of music, I think a nice standard fade to black works really, really well. That happens a lot with soundtracks for video games, is music that's meant to be loopable doesn't actually have a satisfying ending. So a lot of them will just kind of taper out the volume at the very end. But that was a beautiful, beautiful piece, my friend. All right, I'm sorry for my lack of energy right now. All right, we have one more to go. Incredible arrangement. You already did everything that I would have said. Again, sparse, like intimate instrumentation size, thin, simple textures, and low energy. That's how you write atmospheric music that can stand on its own and yet still stay in the background. Or one strategy. So now we have Judith. Judith Woods requests, I am not happy with the middle section of this piece and think it needs something more rhythmic or an ostinato possibly going on to drive it for telling the story. So really interested in your opinion on this and anything else you think needs revisiting. Additional information. This piece was written with Remembrance Day in mind, so it centers around the First World War. I composed it approximately 2 years ago. I am currently revisiting the project to reorchestrate in some places using the brass band soloist library I bought, and I used to play cornet in a brass band here in the UK, so it's my background. Awesome! Let's do it! Let's listen to it. Oh, that's beautiful, right off the bat. Beautiful. Judith, incredible, beautiful, beautiful, moving piece of music. That's wonderful. So I unfortunately was enjoying it too much to actually pay attention to a lot of feedback. Wonderful arrangement, but I do have one thing. Only one thing that stuck out around the 1 minute marker. You have a solo oboe performing the melody is what it sounds like. And then brass are providing the accompaniment. Beautiful sound combination. I just don't know how realistic it would be. It sounds like you have oboe with horns. Let's listen to it. Oh wait, no, that's strings. Never mind. For some reason, the first time I heard it, I thought it was horns. All right, that gets rid of that idea. I was going to say you would have a lot of difficulty balancing an oboe against the horns, but oboe solo oboe against strings, that's perfectly fine. Well, unfortunately, that was the only thing I was going to point out. But that's a beautiful arrangement. This is a very moving piece, and the visual storytelling along with it is incredible. All right, so I wish I had more to offer, but that's it, my friends. I am exhausted. I have somewhere to be, unfortunately, very quickly. So thank you to everyone who submitted pieces. I hope you learned some stuff. I hope it was valuable time for you. I definitely had a blast. And I'm looking forward to the next one. So thank you again to everyone who submitted music this week around. I hope you all have a wonderful Thanksgiving if you celebrate, and I will see you all in the next stream. So thank you very much. Have a good day, everybody. Bye-bye.